Ah, hello. Welcome to my shop. Come right inside. Take a look around and don't be afraid to say so if you like something, and then we'll do some business. Hi guys, so we've arrived at the final horror anthology film that Amicus did. We've still got some full-length feature films to come after this, but this was the last of the anthologies. I think they were briefly playing an 8th one for a while, and then it fell through, and that was the end of the run. This one was directed by Kevin Connor, somebody I had never previously heard of before this rewatch. He was a first-time director on From Beyond the Grave, and I think this is the second time since I've been doing these Amicus reviews that we've come across a first-time director. I think this was just one of the ways that Amicus try to save a bit of money from time to time, but on this occasion the gamble paid off, because from a directorial point of view, certainly there's absolutely nothing wrong with this movie, and Connor went on to have a reasonable career. He was directing stuff for many years after this, although I don't personally recognise too many of his credits. I think this is a popular one though, From Beyond the Grave. I think a lot of people like this one. For me, it's certainly coming into the rewatch, it was kind of a mid-table Amicus anthology film. There are better ones than this in my opinion, but there are also worse ones, and I was curious to see if that opinion would go one way or the other after I'd revisited it. In terms of how I'm going to go about the review, same as always, I'll take each of the individual stories in turn and then we'll have a conclusion at the end. But before all that, we will talk about the wraparound story, and in particular Peter Cushing doing his best audition for Emmerdale Farm. So we've got an antique shop owner played by Peter Cushing, and every time a customer comes in, if they are dishonest with Cushing in any way, then they will be fated to die once they leave the store in some story that just happens to involve the object that has just been bought, if you see what I mean. And this process repeats itself a few times throughout the film until we come to the final story where an actually honest customer comes in, and so they don't end up dying in their story, but we'll come back to that a bit later on. But Cushing seems to be having a great time playing a Yorkshireman. He's always fiddling with a new prop every time we come back to this scenario between the main stories. My personal favourite is when he's walking around with like a plastic crocodile head just pressed to his shoulder, and it's so funny. And he comes out with so many different dry witticisms in this as well, which all seem to be being spoken to us, the audience, rather than the actual customers that he's meant to be dealing with. So at one point, this guy's about to walk off with a snuff box, and he just says to him, "Have fun snuffing it, sir," because he knows full well this character is going to die. I think it's quite appropriate that Cushing is in the framing story for this film, given that it is the final one in this series, because he was in the original framing story in Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, and then he just started appearing in like the main stories for the subsequent films. So it feels like he's come full circle by now going back to being a framing story character. And I actually wonder if this is the same character from Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. Maybe it is Dr. Shrek. Maybe he got tired of riding around on trains showing people his tarot cards and just decided to retire to a small shop somewhere. I mean, I know he has a different accent, but certainly both characters, if they are different, they're both otherworldly and all-knowing. I mean, where the hell does that coffin with the spikes in it suddenly appear from in the final scene in this, when the burglar falls into it? Very convenient that it suddenly pops up in just the right spot to kill this guy. This is why, you know, it seems pretty obvious to me that this is not a human being that we're talking about. But I love this whole scenario with the mysterious antique shop owner. I enjoyed all the scenes throughout this film involving Cushing playing this guy. It's probably not my favourite framing story. That honour would go to the one in Asylum, which was just so clever. But this one, in From Beyond the Grave, would probably be fighting it out for second with the whole train scenario from Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. Gatecrasher is about a young cad played by David Warner, though he does look at least 30 in this, come to think of it. He's playing like a bachelor who's perfectly happy being free and single. He's got this apartment that he's clearly very proud of, judging by the amount of money he's spent on all the bits in it. And at the start of this story, he's bought this large mirror to hang over the fireplace. Then he holds a séance with his friends, and they accidentally call down this spirit that goes into the mirror, not that they know it at the time. And I guess the spirit starts persuading David Warner to kill women in order to feed the mirror. Now, I do like this concept of a spirit stood right behind the mirror. It was quite creepy. This story definitely gave me gooseflesh in ways that Poltergeist 3 just never did. But the murders that take place in this story are a little bit distasteful for me, and I didn't enjoy that part of the story somehow. I think one of the reasons is that I just never found it convincing that the mirror could persuade this character to carry out all these atrocities. I was just sat there the whole time thinking, get out of the goddamn flat, or break the mirror, do one of those two things. But don't murder women, don't go along with this mirror's whims, just don't do it. I mean, clearly the character is being controlled by the thing behind the mirror, but I don't know, I wasn't fully satisfied with that part of the story, the middle section, I guess. But it makes up for it near the end, because there's a fantastic montage of all the future residents of the flat just living in the place, and all this time passing. And if this montage was Kevin Connor's idea, that I guess we should give him some credit for that. The ending where David Warner is in the mirror in place of the spirit is quite good for me, because he has to wait a long time to get his chance to come out again. So I'll give this story some points for a good concept and a really decent ending. I didn't fully like it because of the murders somehow. It's not like I'm squeamish because of these sorts of things, obviously. It's just that, I don't know, I'm just not convinced this story needed that side of it. And there's a girl who sort of hinted that she might be important to this character, when at the beginning it's kind of set up that he's not that kind of guy. He's just very free and easy around women, and he'll sleep with anybody potentially. So that kind of felt ushered in a little bit, that we've got this girl who is a bit more important than all the other girls. But it's still all right on the whole. How nice that Donald Pleasance is in this one, and his daughter. I don't know if Donald and Angela appeared in anything else together apart from this. I can't be bothered cross-checking all their various credits, but presumably this was a very special production for the pair of them. And it's not like Angela was a non-actor just appearing in this one thing. If you look at her filmography, she's got quite a lot of credits that were mostly after this particular film. But as for the actual story here, it's very plodding until you get to the final twist. So we've got this ex-army guy who is having problems with his wife, and he bumps into Donald Pleasance's character, and they end up going back to Donald's house, I can't remember his character name, and introduces him to his daughter, and they strike up an affair eventually. And then there's this whole plot to bump off the nagging wife, and you think that these two are now going to live happily ever after, but of course there's still one very macabre twist to come. But I had quite a few problems with this story. The main thing is the complete lack of chemistry between any of these characters. Like, you could understand why some men might leave a wife they perceive to be a complete annoyance and go off with some younger woman, but not when there's such a complete lack of chemistry with that younger woman. Like, this ex-army guy, the main character, he's hanging out with Angela Pleasance, and there's just nothing between them going on at all. It's really awkward silences, nobody knows what to say, and then suddenly we switch scenes and they're in bed together, and it's like, whoa, how did we get from that to this? And if we bring Donald Pleasance into the conversation at this point, when the three of them are in the same room, again, the atmosphere's so flat, nobody's saying anything, it's really awkward. If I was in this house and I was a guest just hanging out with these two characters, I'd be like, I'd rather go back to the nagging wife, honestly. This is not for me at all. And Donald Pleasance, his character has a weird job in this. I presume he's self-employed, but he's selling matches and shoelaces on like a tray. He's just stood in the street. He just stands there all day. If you tried to do that in 2024, I think you'd struggle to make £5 all day, even if you were stood on a really busy street. I don't know if this was more of a thing that was viable in the 70s. I don't know. It's not like Pleasance's character here is like a really good market trader with a big booming voice like Del Boy. You know, he's not stood there like, come and get your shoelaces and matches, 3 for £1. He's not doing anything like that. He's just stood there really shy, like he doesn't want to speak to anybody going past. I can't believe he would make any money off this unless he's literally going through this entirely so he can meet this one guy. But that's a little bit of a stretch. I don't know. And it's two really weird items to put together in the same business plan, shoelaces and matches. Two things that have got nothing to do with each other. You'd think it would be like shoelaces and shoe polish. You know, you buy one, you might want the other one. Or matches and vapes. Obviously, it won't be vapes back in the 70s, but you get the point. Like, if you're just going to have two completely unrelated items, you might as well have dog food and toilet roll. Come and get your dog food and toilet roll. Two completely unrelated items that have nothing to do with each other, but the main story's all right. It's not one of my favourite Amicus short stories, I've got to say, but just for the fact that it's got Donald Pleasance in it, and it's so cool to see him in one of these films finally, then I could always get some enjoyment out of this. But I do find it ridiculous that Pleasance is the one saying to this army guy on the street, look, come round my house, we'll have a bit of cake. Come on, you know you want to, come on, it's all right now. Because it should actually be somebody saying to Donald Pleasance's character, Donald, we've got to talk about this shoelaces and matches thing. Come round my house. We'll have a bit of cake together. Come on, we'll have tea and cake, tea and biscuits, whatever you want. Come on, just put the tray down. No one's going to steal it. Trust me. The Elemental is a somewhat comedic segment, I would suggest. It's about this guy who realises he's got a demon on his shoulder, an invisible demon. And when he's on the train one day, a clairvoyant offers to get rid of it for him with some kind of exorcism. It's this same woman who points out to him in the first place that he's got this thing, suspiciously. Eventually, the guy agrees to let this woman come round to his house, and I don't think I need to take the plot any further than that. I'll let you discover the final twist for yourself. To my shame, I totally didn't realise that Nairi Dawn Porter is in this story. It was only afterwards when I looked at the cast list that I realised that she was in it. And the reason why I point this out is because it was only a few weeks ago I was praising this actress to high heaven for her performance in The House That Dripped Blood. And here we are a few weeks later, put her right in front of me, and I just can't recognise her at all. But you know what? You watch movies night after night like I do. You see lots and lots of glamorous women all the time. You can't always remember all of them. So I'll defend myself with that. The main enjoyment to get out of this story is the pivotal scene where the exorcism is performed. It's absolutely hilarious. So this character, Madame Orloff, I definitely didn't forget this character name. She starts doing this incantation or something, and there's plates flying off the shelves and everything's getting smashed in the living room, and she just acts like this is no big deal. This is a wealthy couple who can probably afford to replace all this, no problem. But the actual couple themselves are just sat there like really stony faced, just thinking to themselves, oh God, what is this? What is it costing us to get rid of this demon? And it's so funny to watch. This character, Madame Orloff, she's just like that character from the Harry Potter universe, the teacher who reads tea leaves and gets the kids to study astronomy and things. She's not a big character, but if you've watched a lot of Harry Potter or read a lot of Harry Potter, you'll know this character. I just can't think of the character name. I'm not into Harry Potter myself, but my wife used to really be into it, and my oldest son was into it for a while, so I've seen like most or all of the films probably. And yeah, this character from Harry Potter is exactly like Madame Orloff from this film, honestly. So it's a brilliantly hilarious scene when everything starts getting smashed. The final twist didn't really have too much effect on me. I think I'd already had all the enjoyment I needed out of the story by that point. I actually wonder if they should have had another final scene where Orloff would be back on the train meeting some other person who has a demon on their shoulder, and she's getting ready to go through the whole process again, and maybe this new person can just tell her that, oh, well, we've just redecorated, but yeah, come round and get rid of this demon for me. That would have been a nice way to finish. This story is kind of similar to the first one. So in the first story, we had David Warner buying a mirror from Cushing's shop, taking it home, plonking it down, and then he gets a huge amount of problems as the result of this mirror. In this story, we have another character played by Ian Ogilvy, I think, who buys an antique door from Cushing's shop, takes it home, plonks it down, and has big problems as the result of this thing. Namely, when it opens, a portal appears and it will take you through to another house from some distant era, and I guess the big danger here is that the main character and possibly his girlfriend as well might end up trapped in this other era and not be able to get back through the door. And I actually thought that would happen to one or more of these people, but it didn't end up doing that. we get a happy ending with this one. Now, I couldn't entirely take the villain seriously in this. There is a villain inside the other world, but because he kind of looks like Captain Barbossa from Pirates of the Caribbean, I couldn't get that spooked by him, in all honesty. And I wish there'd been a bit more creativity with the other world. It's basically just a room. I mean, if you compare this to the segment from VHS Viral where the main character crosses a portal and he ends up in this really bizarro world, there's so much imagination that was poured into that story compared to this, where honestly when the characters go through the portal, there's not much to look at on the other side. There's not all that much excitement, in all honesty. Very cool to see Leslie Ann Down pop up though as the main character's girlfriend. I guess the moral of the story for this is, if you don't try and deceive shopkeepers, you too might end up in a long-term happy relationship with someone who looks like Leslie Ann Down. Maybe that's what they were going for. But I don't know. This story's all right, but this one kind of sums up the film, really. Lots of okay, good stories, but there's been nothing exceptional for me personally. The only exceptional thing in From Beyond the Grave is the main framing story with Cushing, and yeah, the main stories after that are fine, but there's just nothing that really stands out. Time to conclude then, but before we do, I will quickly show you the version of the film that I own for this. So here is my Blu-ray copy of From Beyond the Grave. It's a pretty fantastic version of the film, really crisp, really clear. There are no features on this disc though, which is a shame, but I guess the main thing is that the film looks and sounds fantastic. Right, let's get to the bag of terror and see how I'm going to score this. So we got 1, 2, 3, 3.5 bloody axes out of 5. I might be being slightly harsh with the score. I was very tempted to go to 4 out of 5, but if there's one thing that's possibly held my opinions back in this review, it's just the Amicus anthology fatigue kicking in, maybe. This is the 7th film in a short time frame. If I was reviewing this film, like if this was the first one or the second one, maybe I would have gone to 4 out of 5. I would have still had all my enthusiasm still intact. As it is right now, I'm kind of like, yeah, I've had a great time with these films. I am ready to move on to something else though, and you know, I'll probably put them back in the cupboard and get them out again 5 years from now, who knows. But yeah, 3.5 out of 5, maybe slightly harsh, you let me know. But I will leave it there for today, unless you want to stay an extra minute for my reading update. So I've just finished reading the Alien novelisation and I am so impressed with it. I was slightly worried that this would literally just be a like for like of the movie, and what's the point? But it's so much more than that. You get so much more characterisation in this than you do in the movie. There's even a couple of big set pieces that have been added to this that weren't in the movie. I guess maybe they were in the original drafts of the script and were taken out at some point. I don't know, but this book really expands on the film. Well worth checking out if you like the movie of Alien, and I'm going to give this book a maximum 5 out of 5 because I just thought it was fantastic, and it was so good actually that I'm definitely going to read the other Alien novelizations now, the ones that I can get hold of anyway. But for now, I'm going to move back to Stephen King. My next book, or the one I've already started off camera, is Night Shift, a book of short stories by Stephen King, but I will say more about that in a further review once I have finished it. Right, I will leave it there for today. I'll catch you all again next time. Bye-bye for now.